Greenberg. This is Steven Silver. We are Multimorphic. Just the two of us. Two of many. But we are here to present the P3, and we're here to present it in context of the development of our most recent release, which is The Princess Bride. So, I'm going to say nothing for the rest of the hour, and Steven's going to do all the work and all the talking.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. I'm Steven. Jerry's blocking my name up there, but that's me. He's being rude. This is The Princess Bride. It was a collaboration between a lot of people, but if you haven't seen this...
My people! Princess Buttercup!
You're the dread pirate Roberts, admit it!
With pride. Inconceivable! Lead it, or I'll call the Blood Squad.
I'm on the Blood Squad.
Someone has beaten the giants. Prepare to die.
Only Fezzik is strong enough to go up our way.
Stand your ground!
This is true love.
I'll never doubt again.
My name is Inigo Montoya. They killed my father.
The clerks of insanity!
He's running the rope. I'm his guinea.
You seem like this fellow. That's the good. You seem decent fellow. I hate the dog.
Our work, Bethel.
What are the 3 times of fast right? The castle game started by 30 rand. The battle of wits has begun.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
Nice editing. Okay, I'm going to let Jared talk for a little bit about the state of the platform, some of the latest things that happen with the platform. So, I already quit.
So the end of that video is kind of our whole value proposition, which is you can buy one machine, one pinball machine. Pinball machines are expensive. They take up a lot of space. They're big and heavy, and no one wants to move them more than once. And with the P3, that's our whole thing, is that you only need one machine, and you can fill it up with game content, just like your video game consoles, or your computers, or your cell phones, or anything else. One device, many apps, or many games, and that's what we do with the P3. Currently have 22 games available for the system. Is it 8 playfield modules now? 7 of which are first party, developed by Multimorphic. 1 is Drain, developed by a third party. And there's a whole bunch of software add-on games that you can use to play. You can play on existing playfields. Some of them are designed for a single playfield. Some of them are designed to work with any of the playfields. So basically the point, though, is you buy one machine and you can add games to it for much less money than buying traditional single-themed machines. We have lots of pictures showing lots of examples of the single machine decorated or installed with many of the games. You can see here Final Resistance, our previous licensed theme, Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity, and Heist. The outside ones are original themes. The center one is licensed, that we all know Weird Al. And as we've progressed as a company, we've evolved the system. So we continue to improve the quality of parts. We continue to add features. We recently shipped every single owner of the system an upgrade kit, or everyone who requested it, an upgrade kit for their existing systems. John, how hard was it to install?
10 minutes.
10 minutes to install all these upgraded parts. We've had literally no issues reported from the newly installed parts.
Except the top livers. I didn't do them. The little ones. The bottom one's fine. Top one's
The thing that takes a long time, he didn't do yet.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to say that.
Oh, sorry. Save me later.
The original P3 had a solid black speaker panel, and when we saw it in arcade lineups, we're like, this. It looks a little bit boring compared to other machines in the arcade. So a couple of years ago, we added. You can see it where my head is right here. You can see my head. The shadow of my head. You can see this backlit speaker panel, which is now a piece of decorated plastic that installs in the machine, and now our speaker panel, where our whole back box presents as the theme of whatever's installed, making it look a lot cooler, a lot more artistic, a lot more theme representative in a line of games. Every single P3 owner has access to this setup. New machine buyers get it. By default, it's how we install, or it's how we build machines nowadays. Original machine owners have the option to update their back box to this setup as well.
Yeah, one thing I've heard on podcasts a lot is people are saying, "Oh, well, when's the P4 coming out? Mine will be obsolete." People who bought the original game have been able to make these upgrades as we've done over time, right? So we've demonstrated dedication to supporting all the customers.
Started shipping P3s in 2017, and the people who bought the first ones, the people who installed the first machines, can run all the latest games. All the latest features can be installed. So
Original games didn't have a screen in the back box. When we did that, there was an upgrade available to people too. So.
front artwork is the latest thing we added. So the machines, for a long time we thought, well, front artwork on the machine is hard to change, or how do you do a multi-game system and have a front artwork decorative piece? It's hard to do the magnetic artwork that we do on all of our games. It's hard to do that on the front. So we stayed away from front artwork for a long time, but a lot of people requested that we add front artwork, so we did. And we created panels, these front artwork panels for all of the game kits that we sell, including, or also in addition to the generic, what we call the system core package, which is an unthemed version of artwork. And these are now available for everyone to install on their machines as well. I said the last thing was the last thing we added.
No. I made the deck.
So we have an LCD screen. Everyone knows about that. We're not going to go into a lot of details about those things. But if you have any questions, or if you're new to the system, please come up and ask us detailed questions afterwards. Or we're happy to walk you over to the booth and talk through specifics. But next to the LCD screen, there are side target assemblies in the machine. Those used to be vinyl decals applied to metal plates, and you had to remove them entirely to swap them with different artwork. We've also now changed our slingshots and our side target covers to magnetic artwork, so they're easier to swap as well. And we've created, or we're now offering such a small little detail, but the 4 screws on the right are thumb screws, so people won't have to, if they choose to install these thumb screws, they won't need to pull out a screwdriver or an Allen wrench to swap anything on the front anymore. And then there's the development kit. We talked about Drained, which is the 8th playfield module someone developed for the P3. Drained is a third-party developed game kit, physical hardware, physical playfield module that can install on the machine. We also have a development kit for people to create software for the P3. So the P3 is like any system, a computer, a video game console, a cell phone, anything that allows third parties to develop content for that device. The P3 is also a device like that. So of our 22 games, half of them are third-party developed. People just downloaded the dev kit, wrote some software for an existing module, and here's a matrix full of applications. I think so Drained is listed there, that's a playfield module on the upper right, but all the other ones are software add-ons that will play on the system that we didn't develop. They were developed by customers or people outside the company who wanted to create content. We host those on our web store, so those developers can sell them. through our web store and obviously make money by creating content for the P3.
This to me is one of the most exciting things that's happening in pinball. I love seeing all the ideas that just everyday normal people, they've got a certain skill set and they're getting together with their buddies and they're making new games and new creative ideas that you could never go to another manufacturer and have them manufacture this one game for you, bring it out, bring it to market. Lots of people are being able to bring their ideas to market and get it out to an audience of people who are hungry for content. That every time a new third-party game is released, it's new pinball day. We oftentimes will go get a thumb drive and put it in the back of our car and take the selfie with our new pinball machine that's on the thumb drive in the back of our car because we get to download it and put it on the machine right away. No, do it over the internet now. But some of these games are fantastic. Like we just have people that are going crazy over Dungeon Door Defender and Birdwatcher and Blood Bank Failures. I mean, these are really awesome ideas that the platform is the only way you could bring this to the public and make them out there.
These, by the way, are also very inexpensive compared to a traditional pinball experience. Hooping It Up, the one in the center right over there, it's free. You just download it and enjoy this whole experience on your P3. The other ones range up to I think $199. I think $200 is the highest price for any of the ones on the screen right now.
All right, so let's talk about designing the Princess Bride. So you can take a nap, Jerry. This is our team. Every pinball machine is a lot of work. I know you guys heard pinball is hard, but it really is. It takes a lot of dedicated people to make these machines, and every single one of these people poured everything into this game. We're all super fans of the movie. We all love the movie, and we had some. We were lucky. I was lucky to work with some incredibly talented people and get this game out. We all approached it from the perspective of we want to do this thing justice. We want fans of the movie to come into it and feeling like they're experiencing the movie, they're playing the movie, they're going through it without forcing somebody into a narrative. Pinball, when you force people into narrative paths, it really gets boring quickly because you always see the same stuff. But we wanted it where you could go and explore the entire world and see any of these modes and play these scenes anytime you want. But if you did decide to go through and play the entire movie in order, you build up a huge narrative streak, and it's really valuable score-wise. So
I can't help myself.
Oh yeah.
With traditional pinball machines that are themed around any IP, you play the game basically getting nostalgic hits from the IP. You hit a shot, you hear a quote. You hit a different shot, you might see a short video clip pop up on the screen that's way up here that you can't see while you're playing. With this game, we really wanted to immerse the player into the story of the theme. Not do nostalgic hits, actually have the player playing through the story of the Princess Bride.
And just what a fantastic property to bring to pinball, right? Like you got, like Grandpa says, there's fencing, fighting, monsters. There's so much stuff in this story that makes really interesting pinball modes. If you just play through the scene and recreate what they're doing in there in a pinball world, and we're able to do things like change the context and show you that video right in front of your eyes. And one thing we did on this is we brought Colin McAlpine on as a rules director, and Colin McAlpine, he won Pinburg. He's a very, very good pinball player. He's got a very, very wide knowledge of pinball rules. So he brought that real competitive pinball player thinking along to designing really, really interesting rules around the progression to this game. People like Rory always does a great job. Matt Andrews killed it on the artwork. He was our artist on Weird Al as well. And the software team, everybody on the software team did an excellent job. Paul Ferrer is an absolutely phenomenal composer. He's very big in the UK, does all the TV shows over there and does everything. He was phenomenal to work with. And the music, he was able to create new music in the style that it feels like it would fit right in the movie as you're watching it, as we're going through. And so everybody in this team really killed it and did a great job. So where do we start with games, right? Every game starts with this blank sheet of paper, right? This is our blank. It shows us the P3 has launch positions where we can launch a ball from any of those any of those kick-out holes. And so we start deciding how we want to use those and how we want to lay out the playfield around those and what features we want to have. And then what we'll oftentimes do is we'll get people to submit ideas. Sometimes we'll do hand-drawn ideas and stuff. This is one of Jerry's sketches, putting together a lot of ideas from everybody to pull through the playfield, and we get a rough idea of how we want the game to go. You can see some early ideas. We talked about having a tree, like the tree that that the Pit of Despair was in up there, and some other things that changed later on. But inside the core ideas, one thing we all decided we want to do is, of course, we're going to have the Cliffs of Insanity in there. We've got to find a way to do the pinball magic trick, which is one of the coolest tricks in pinball, where the ball levitates. But they faked it in that game. We're like, no, we need to do it for real. And always when there's an idea like that, we're like, okay, we've got no idea how to make this happen. TJ, go figure out how to make these dumb ideas work. And TJ comes back with something that's great. It's amazing. And I love that map. And we will put that mode very close to the flippers, so everybody could experience climbing the mountain, hitting these rising shots, and watching their ball go climb up to the top of the cliffs and get up to the top. And then, I'll go through and I'll start laying stuff out in Photoshop. We'll start lining them up with shots, and we'll go through the iteration process of trying to decide what things are going to work with our theme ideas, which ones are not. One thing about us is that we're always designing around the theme from the beginning, because we want to really theme integration is so important to us that every aspect of the game, we're not designing a layout first and then slapping a theme on it. Everything's built around the theme. And so we start working around ideas, and we start playing around with feasibility. What can we do? What can we change? And we've got early drawings like this, thinking about the shot paths and how we're going to integrate things like that. Then TJ starts bringing it into CAD, and he starts drawing it up, and we start seeing where it is, and we start planning out like how are our shots, how are we going to utilize these shots, how are these things going to be utilized. And so I'll have different colored shots on there saying what's tied to which one. And you can see some of these early drawings that he's done of things, and then he'll have different angles and different stuff. And then we'll go through and we'll start planning out where the switches are, where our optos are, where are we going to be tracking the ball and things like that. So you'll see us planning out where those things go. And then later on in the process, we start getting a more finished design. We start figuring out, what are the actual faces that we're going to have. How are we going to start thinking about our work on these faces. And one thing that this was actually Jerry's insistence early on. He's like, what would it be like if we had a machine where you didn't see any metal? Like all the metal was covered with art. We don't have like ram flaps and things like that. We covered it all up. And I was like, well, we could try that and see what it looks like. And it looks amazing. Like this is a beautiful playfield with the artwork. And Matt killed it on there.
Like these surfaces, these metal guides that all pinball machines have to guide the ball around. Usually those are just metallic. They're not finished. They don't look immersive. They just look like metal guides in pinball machines.
The little flaps right here are almost never decorated. We've got the art on there, so it's a smooth art surface. The artwork's not interrupted all the way up the playfield.
Yeah, so when you go into the game room and look at the Princess Bride again after this presentation, go look at literally both sides of every metal rail are decorated.
Yeah. And so again, and what's cool about this is we can lay out the world under glass with the different areas that you're going through, and you can see how the map continues on up to the playfield. Don't I say hi, John?
Hi.
And then we start building out the whitewood, right? And this is where we bring Trey in, and we start getting the initial shapes and stuff like that. And we start testing out the geometry and see what needs to be adjusted. You get early builds like this that lead to the full whitewood. I think Josh still has this one in his house, but
If you're going to Pinball Expo, I think Josh is going to bring this exact whitewood to the show.
Yeah.
It'll probably be on the table just being shown, but yeah.
Yeah, this is where we're testing out some of our concepts. Like, okay, let's see how this does in real world environment, and see what things we need to tweak. And then, so then we start. Like I said, we needed to start building around. We need to see what assets we've got from the licensor, and we start building around the assets, right? So the first thing we've got this time code window burn, lower res version of the movie. And I start going through and cutting out the pieces and figuring out how we're going to use these scenes and make them into playable pinball modes and stuff like that. And then later on, they gave us the high-res version of that that had all the audio channels and the individual stems, and I can go through and place that, and we end up swapping that out at some point, swapping out all these low-res things.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
With the full-res.
You killed my father.
Yeah, with full graphics and everything. And this is what my timeline looks like in my editing software. That's how much of the movie we have. I don't know if you can see there. That's an hour and 14 minutes where my playhead is at the end. Most of those are just sound. Those are just sound alikes and everything. But when we say we've got the Princess Bride movie, we've got the Princess Bride movie, I always challenge people to go to that game and find some quote, some beloved scene that they remember from that movie that they won't eventually see in that game by playing it. And I guarantee you, we've thought about it. We put it in there somewhere. So just a ton of stuff that we've got. So other things we start thinking about is because we've got a dynamic playfield, we can do things like have dynamic shot markers that change over time. It's not just one insert with one piece of text on it. We can change how it's presented, and we have to come up with a system for how that works. Like sometimes you can have 2 things lit on a single shot. Sometimes you can have 3 things lit on a single shot. So we start figuring out what our shot marker system is, and then what does that design look like when they're lined up, and how do we avoid like overlaps and things like that, and figure out all the information that you might want to put on a shot marker. Like, okay, we're going to put the actual score value right below the shot marker without having to put a 7-digit display in the playfield or something like that. And have them animate in different ways and tell you, hey, this one's more important right now, or here's a timer on this or something like that.
It's probably the single most important difference about the P3, besides the modularity and the ability to swap games, is the dynamic screen, allowing us to decorate shots so that they mean something to the player as they're playing. Because you as the player are looking at your flippers, you're looking at the balls rolling around, you're not looking at the screen to read instructions. The screen on a back box, to read instructions.
Yeah.
So by being able to show you the score value or the time remaining on a shot and putting that information on the shot itself, even if you're not consciously reading it, you're understanding what you're doing as you play. And the P3 allows us to do that on every game, and we do that differently in every game because it's got to be thematically integrated.
Yeah. And also, we can do cool things like have the gold sheen around it and stuff like that you may not notice for the first 30 times you play, but then you go, oh, that's a nice touch. I think it's a nice touch. Rory does a good job. And I go through and we start playing around with the theme. We start trying to work with color and figure out what this is. And on the left-hand side, we were assigning different players' colors. I think we ended up swapping Wesley and Inigo's colors later on. But we'll go through and we'll, on the playfield, I'm like, well, we're building this world. Like, how do we lay out the playfield and stuff? Okay, here's the floor inside. Here's the Gelder side. Here's the floor and channel in the middle, and mapping out how we're going to build this playfield. And that ends up, one of the biggest modes we do is home mode. And a lot of times with my videos, I'm having to design for 2 different aspect ratios, because our back box is 16:9 HD for television, and then the playfield is 16:9 vertically. And so we have to figure out, to get the most out of our assets, we've got to design it both ways to handle both crops, things like that. But another thing we can do is we can add more depth to these playfields and stuff. So we created this shimmer layer that goes over the thing. So it's like a shimmer that will go across the scene, and the water has this shimmer that's running through it at a different rate and things like that. And these are little subtle touches, but it brings depth to the game that you're playing, or you're doing much more than just a painted piece of wood can do.
Let's talk about that more. Traditional playfields, painted pieces of wood that have inserts in them. They have lighting elements, and those lighting elements are used to communicate to the player. If they're flashing, they're saying shoot here. If the whole set of lights flash, it's usually some kind of response to completing a shot or some kind of objective. We have a screen, therefore we have any number of opportunities to create visual effects in response to a shot. But it doesn't really make sense to just put a circle put a circle in front of a shot, or put a bunch of circles or different shapes around the playfield to try to recreate a traditional experience where you have a very low resolution palette or canvas to animate a light show. So we're always looking in whatever theme we're implementing or whatever style of art we're putting on that LCD, we're looking for ways to present these reward light show experiences using the constructs that we've developed. So taking a map of a land and turning that into a light show seems like a weird thing. But the team came up with this way to basically highlight all of the art that makes up that map and use the highlights as the canvas for the light. It's really cool. If you play the game again, I'm looking right at you, John.
Hurry up.
Hurry up! Oh,
I think I'm flying.
You have fly. Yes, the terrain is decorated. The river's decorated. You see the water crests moving up and down that river as you play, and they're integrated perfectly into light shows. It's really well done. It's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, you how many inserts on a playfield that you have, right? We've got 1 million pixels to work with
Or a
here.
million.
Or a million. Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff. I only teach video. Why don't I know? But anyways, we're trying to utilize that space in lots of different ways. And some games, like in Weird Al, the floor tiles light up and it's ball tracking. So as the ball rolls over those tiles, they light up like the Billie Jean music videos. There's lots of it. We try to come at every game a little bit differently to pull off these effects and do this stuff. And then one of the advantages that we have if you guys want to go out and start creating your own games, we've got a dev kit, we've got a sample game in there. You can get really far down the line without having a physical playfield to play on by playing in the simulator. And so as we're designing the game rules and going through, we can pull it up in Unity and we can all play it on our keyboards and see how stuff's reacting. On the left-hand side, you see light shows, how they're being integrated and designed here. You can see our river ripples and stuff like that. Over here, you see the stuff Josh is doing with indicating, like, oh, you hit this shot. This is the result of that shot. We're dragging the letter down and adding it to the scene. Right? So we're making much more cause and effect relationships between what you hit and where you go. And because of this simulator, because of the action to it, we can get really far down the line of figuring out what this game is, what the gameplay experience is, before we actually have a machine to flip. And so it's really good for us because a lot of us, our design team is all over the nation, all over the world, and people need to go and they need to check their work and see how it's looking up. I need to, on my animations, go through and see how they're looking in that world. And so you can do that. You can pop it on the P3 that you've got and plug in a keyboard and start playing it with the keyboard there just to see what they work like. You see on this one on the left-hand side, with Josh put all the keyboard shortcuts across the top as an overlay, so we know we hit W to hit that ramp, things like that. So this is one of the advantages of this system and having and being able to go down this route is that everybody can go and experience this game before. You don't have to get all the way to manufacturing, making physical playfields to start experiencing what the actual game experience is like.
By the way, if you really want to mess with your friends, put a USB keyboard into your P3. You put the dongle into the P3 and then sit there on the side with your keyboard, and you can literally hit these same keystrokes and make these things happen in the physical game as they're playing.
Yeah.
You can help them.
Also set up Twitch Connect and just go on your Twitch account and just make the flippers invert or the reverse flippers while they're playing. I love messing with my kids that way. I'll pay the counseling bill later. One of the things we did in this game, we always try to figure out where is our player communication about what the mode they're in and everything else. If somebody wants to trap up and read what they need to do next or something, and we're like, what's our design medium? In Weird Al, we have the Owl Pad that kind of shows you your progress of the game. Usually in a traditional game, it'd be a cluster of inserts that would blink or be solid to show you your progress in the game. But we can dive down in the individual mode and say, okay, you got 3 shots to finish this or 2 shots to finish this. And so we were like, well, let's bring the Princess Bride book in. This whole thing's about a book. And what it involved is a whole lot of asset creation. Going through and just making endless pages to make this book work and everything else. But we took all the design and iterated on it, and I think got a pretty nice experience, and it's also something that isn't in the way. If you just want to play and flip and play the traditional way and just follow shots, you can just completely ignore it and go through there. But if you do want to trap up and look down and see what you've got to do next, we've got the information right there before your eyes. You don't have to look up at the back box. Refocus your eyes to figure that distance and get back down here to do the other stuff. So we can go through and make all that. And then, again, another thing that we have the ability to do is that we can change the whole visual context whenever you go into specific modes. So we had our artists come in and draw up these custom environments for when you go into the fire swamp or the pit of despair or these other things. And so again, that's where like it kind of indicates to you, okay, now I'm in a different mode. Like now I'm in a different world. The whole context can change, and it's not just the lighting tricks.
But that's interesting. Aside from the fact that we can do it, is when we hire an artist, when we bring an artist on to design the playing experience or design the visual presentation. I mean, with a traditional game, they would design one bit of artwork for the playfield, and the playfield always presents that way. In that slide, the previous slide, there's 4 different implementations of what the playfield will look like while you're playing, plus the map, which you see on this slide.
There's also 2 extra ones on here, so we got a lot.
So the artist is able to deliver the story through different playfield representations in addition to everything else, which is neat for everyone except me writing the checks to the artist.
But I mean, what we end up with is this, rich environment that, and it can be different, a completely different experience from game to game, every single game. And so you can see as we go through this, just some of these screenshots that we have from the modes. One of all of our favorite modes is the left-handed swordsman. It's the one everybody figured out that you have to do. It's like we're uniquely positioned in the market because we have flipper button boxes with multiple buttons that you can use in different configuration stuff. It's like one of the platform features is you could set up a game to play one-handed if you wanted to play one-handed tournaments and stuff like that. But we're like, we got to make a mode where people have to play left-handed swordsman first, and then halfway through the scene, they both confess that they're not left-handed and they switch to their right-handed. So once you make it halfway through the scene, you need to switch over and play right-handed to finish it. And so that's a weird pinball thing to do, right? Like, so there's been lots of games that have gone and done different flipper effects and stuff like that, but I can pop up a little indicator right there on the screen that's showing you, like, hey, these are the 2 buttons you're using now to flip the flippers and do that stuff. We can also activate the flippers and things like that. We can have mode selection where that book comes up full screen, everything else goes away. It says, this is what you're focusing on right now. Which mode do you want to go to right now? And our rule in our design is basically like, there shouldn't be any reason that you ever have to look up at that backboard, right? Everything should be in front of your eyes. You should be able to just keep focused on the playfield and your plan. You should never have to do that. We've got a beautiful monitor in the back glass that presents a lot of this information too. So if you want to, you can, but that's for all your friends, all your buddies, right? I can't be responsible. You have to go make your own buddies to watch the thing. But I watch my screen most of that. So we show them the pit of despair. The whole scene changes, the whole environment changes. We've got this cool ball save mode. If you earn a pit of despair, you can earn your ball back by going through and playing this progressive multi-ball, where if you keep it all alive and hit all of the shots without draining a single ball, you get to earn your way back to not quite dead. You don't have any tilt warnings left because you're still a little dead, so don't tilt. But you get your ball back and you get to go. That's
cool. That's cool. I want to make sure people heard it. When you drain your ball, but you have Pit of Despair lit, you get the opportunity to play this mode, and if you succeed in it, you're revived. You were almost dead, now you're not dead. But you come back with no tilt warnings available to you, because you're still almost dead.
Yeah.
So we allow you to mostly come back.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
In Guide My Sword, the whole deal is that he's trying to guide his sword. He's help me, Father, guide my sword. And so we've got this sword. We've got the wall scoop assemblies that can pop up and block your shots, and the sword has to line up with the right shots. And if the sword's not lit up, the hole's not open. So you got to hit this left and right targets to move the sword left and right. Once it lines up and that shot opens up, and you can hit it. So you basically have to do that 3 times to get through Guide My Sword, but that's, you're watching Inigo searching around to find the knot on the tree that will open up the Pit of Despair. Buttercup's Nightmare, you've got the ancient Boer that's harassing her the whole time, and this is a no-hold flipper mode. So we're telling you right here at the flippers, no hold. And this is when you learn just how much you trap up as where you're playing. You're trying to trap up and they fall immediately. And God, I can't do that. You just got to survive the whole nightmare. And every time you're hitting targets and stuff, we've got the Boer coming up there, boo, boo, hitting you up, just tearing you up while you're playing. You're hitting shots and she's saying all the lines when they pop up and these pop-ups around it. So
And that mode is that there are no shots to hit in that mode. I mean, if you hit them, you get these animations, these bits from the film, but you are literally not trying to hit any shots. You're trying to not drain.
yeah.
And the lack of hold on your flippers is making it hard to not drain, and you're surviving the nightmare. It's a unique experience.
So I mean, this is real ass pinball, people. This is really good, right? But it's like we get to do a lot of unique stuff because of the platform. That wall and scoop assembly is awesome. It's amazing. The ability with this dynamic screen to do a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff you just couldn't do on a traditional machine. And then when we go into the artwork, one thing we did new this year is that Matt was able to pull the model into Blender, and he was starting to paint on the actual model itself, because we wanted to cover every metal surface with art. So let's just go ahead and see what that would look like with just some rough mock-ups and stuff like that. So he'd go in there and then he can export all the flat pieces out and then start doing the final artwork and stuff. And so this was a really cool process to see, like a virtual version of what our art looks like preliminary before we started getting it. And then TJ gets all the art and he pulls it into CAD, and we start seeing it like the more finalized art, what it looks like in the CAD model before we go ahead and print it. And then we get this, which I think is a beautiful playfield. If you get a chance to go and look at just how well, I mean, like just the flap going up there, just seeing that ramp go up, there's a continuous thing. We don't have that metal flap breaking the art in the middle of it. We're able to have the transition between the sand and the hill, the grassy hill that As You Wish falls down as it's coming down. Is amazing. Thanks for letting us do that, Jerry. And then we start designing what are our cabinet features and what do they look like. And again, I do my bad mock-up models and say we're playing around with stuff, and it eventually leads to
Which one's the bad one?
And then we get the real one on the right, And so one of we were thinking about for this one, we wanted to have a version of this. If you're a super fan, if you really love this movie, if this is your movie, we wanted to give them something that could be a showpiece in their house, but it's still a P3. It's still a full P3. This could be your Princess Bride Collector's Edition machine with all the extra features. We've got an artwork bezel here that's the glass that's integrated more with the entire theme. We've got these really awesome powder coated armor, and then we spent a lot of time trying to make the replica of Inigo swords for the side. They're really awesome. And so we're going from that mock-up to this. And then, with the topper, I would start off with my chicken scratch drawings, trying to, come up with the ideas and say, let's figure out this. And we knew we wanted to do the fire swamp is such an iconic scene. We're like, let's do the topper around the fire swamp. And then we spent a lot of time trying to iterate, trying to figure out the best way to do the flames. And so what I was trying to do is I was like, I think we could do the stacked plastic thing. And so I mocked up this and after showing people like different light shows we could do with the flames.
Because how do you show flames that are impressive to look at but are spurts?
Yeah.
So they're not always visible. They're only sometimes visible. In the film, they don't exist until they spurt up, and then they're gone.
One of those things at car lots, which are the little guys that go like this. You almost got that because I thought that was cool. But my bad ideas are always shot down. So. And then we will go through an iteration where we do the mock-ups, and like this is Steve Schroyer is on our software team, and he's got all this equipment and stuff. So he's like, let me go and try that out and see what it looks like. So we got this cardboard mock-up where we could actually see how well this works, and it worked pretty well, like the different layers popping in together, and then we ended up with our final topper. And so we've got this topper is It's cool for effects when you're playing the fire swap. Of course, when you get the flame spurts and stuff, we'll fire off the flame spurts and we'll highlight the rouse, the RUS, and the sand pit. But also, the whole idea is that you're completing all the chapters of the book. So when we're lighting up pages in different ways that you're making your progress. But if you're on a narrative streak, we can show you on the topper where your narrative streak is going on and things like that. So a lot of thought went into this, and Matt did a killer job on putting it all together. And then the artwork packages, again, we knew we wanted to have a couple different artwork, different packages. This is our SE package, and we were like, we want this to be the simpler package. Like, this is more about some of the iconic scenes that you've seen in the movie, and then we've got the mirrored sides and everything. And we all fell in love with this picture of the grandpa and kid reading the book, so we put that on the speaker panel.
And the two translates, by the way, so we have a digital screen, and the name of the game, the name of the film, is on the speaker panel. So people who have the speaker panel installed probably aren't going to want the title duplicated right on the digital screen above it. So we give people the option. It's a software setting. You can go in and you can enable or disable that title.
Yeah. Also, can you take it off the topper too?
It is on a separate mounted piece of plastic on the topper. If you really want to take that off, I don't think anyone has.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we're always thinking about, because it's a multi-game system. We want to give people a lot of options, right? So people can go in there and they've got their digital translates that can change how they appear. So you're not getting logo overload if you don't want it, right? Or if you want it, go for it. Put extra ones on there with sticky bits. And then we had the LE package, and we're like, okay, we want this to be more involved, show more of the scenes. And so we kind of had like the concept of, the battles on the left-hand side. So we got the battle of wits, the battle of strength, the battle of steel on the bottom, and the three travelers on the right-hand side. And the left-hand side is the rescue. It's when they're going to the castle and saving Buttercup at the end. And then we wanted a traditional pinball collection of everybody in the scene on that back glass. And so again, think about colors. The SE went more of the blue palette, and this went more in the dark green palette. And again, the grandfather and the kid reading the book, but this is a different composition there, where they're more in a fairy tale than. And one thing that I always loved is that a couple of years ago, I've got this DVD at home, but this was something that they released that I thought was, just so clever that they did this. It's an anagram of the title, and it's got, the Dread Pirate Roberts and Princess Buttercup, and you've got the farm boy and farm girl, and they're both in the same stance, but you can flip this whole picture around and you see it still says Princess Bride at the end, but it's just the showing the characters change over time. And I was like, what I want to do on this game is I want us to have this magic back glass that will have depth to it. It'll go, but as you're going on this translite, it will shift in between the two as you go over time. So when you install it in your game, is it going? Yeah. Nope, it's back. Back, go back. All right. There we go. So it's got this parallax effect on the back glass. So when you're in your home mode, this is going back and forth. It's got some motion to it in the background. It's like having a lenticular effect without all those weird lines and without the fuzziness and everything else. We can put these living back glasses together. And so I kind of love that concept of having both scenes going back and forth between both the scenes. And then we are able to do it again with the LA version as well, and add that depth to the LA version as well. So you can have this deeper phase, and this is actually with assets in the game that with the camera that's going back and forth between them. So it's pretty nice. And in our track mode too, on the screen, we've got this looping scene in the background, so everything becomes much more dynamic with them. And they are in production. You want to talk about that?
They're in production.
Yeah.
Again, hurry up.
Which batch are we in?
So when we launched this in February, we said production in summer. We started production in summer. We shipped batch 1. We finished that a few weeks ago. We processed all the orders a few weeks ago. A few are still going out, but we're in batch 2 right now. We have 6 batches of orders that came in. We estimated about 4 to 6 weeks per batch. Some of the batches are larger and tending towards 6 weeks. The smaller batches are 4 weeks. But we expect to be finished January-ish, late January, probably early February. We should be through all the existing orders. And then as people are getting them, of course, they'll be showing them off. People will be playing them in arcades, and we'll get a bunch more orders in. So if you put an order in today, it'll push future orders back. But yeah, they're in production now. We're spitting them off the production line daily. And they're getting into boxes going out to customers.
That's a pretty picture. I like it. So if you're interested in it, we've got 3 trim levels. And again, if you already own a P3, you can get into this game for $37.50. Right? You get the whole experience for $37.50. You get shipped. UPS or FedEx brings you the box to your house at your front door. You carry that upstairs or downstairs, or if you're much smarter than me, your single level house camera, you can put it in there, right? And it's ready to go. And we've got two different build lines. So there's one building new games, and there's one building, the modules for existing owners. So, depending on if you're in an existing order, you're in a different line, So, but if you are coming into the system, you can get the whole game for $11.50. But that gives you access to the entire P3 library of 22 games. Anything in our catalog you want to buy, you can go back and buy. If you there's third-party games that are already released for this game. You can download Birdwatcher. You can download our other ones that work on this playfield. And then you can go back and you can make New Pinball Day happen in a month or two because you want to try out Weird Al, or you want to try out Heist, or you want to try out Lexi, or call Nick up and get drained in Blood Bank Billiards, right? Get that EM style game fix going on. If you want the limited edition with the topper and everything else, it goes from $11.50 to $12.75. That's not a huge jump to get that and to get the custom art package and everything involved with that, right? And then if you want to get the collector's edition with the swords, if you want your dedicated machine, one thing I'm trying to do, normalize having multiple P3 cabinets, because it's really cool to have 2 of them, and then you can just swap. You can keep 2 of them in there if you want to, but you can have your dedicated Princess Bride cabinet or whatnot if you want to. You could get 2 Cannon Lagoon playfields and play heads up, or get 2 CCRs and play head-to-head Cosmic Kart Racing at your house at Party Nights, which is the most fun you'll have playing pinball.
And some people say they don't want to swap games. They want a cabinet dedicated to a game. Therefore, does the P3 make sense for them? Why not? It's just as a single. If you install one playfield in it, it presents exactly the same way any other machine presents. It's a cabinet with a game in it. You just have the extra advantage of being able to swap it if you choose to do so. So.
Except you're going to download Birdwatcher because you want to watch the birds. So, and that's the best thing in the world is like saying, you know what, I'm going to hop out to the switcher. I'm going to switch over and I'm going to play one of these little mini games once. We will play Dungeon or Defender will be available on this.
It is. It was released this week.
Oh, it was? Okay. Dungeon or Defender is available on it. You can download it. Dungeon or Defender is awesome if you haven't seen it. It's tower defense in pinball. And it's amazing. Like, it's so fun. And there's 3 different ways to play. And it's a cheap pinball experience that you can get. You just switch over and you're instantly playing something else. Download it on the internet on your game. Automatically works. And we really like it. Kerry came to the factory and he liked it. That was nice. So that's what we get. So that's it. That's the show. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, young man.
You touched on animating a ball path. Can you elaborate on the tracking of the ball?
Yeah, so the lower screen has an optogrid across the entire thing, so we know where the ball is. And so as the ball is tracking across the screen, we can do things like put a virtual target out there. If you play Fire Swamp, we've got an RUS that's crawling around the playfield. If that ball rolls over the RUS, now you got to fight the RUS, and you've got to defeat that hazard before you can go back on and get the rest of your bind shots.
Another super cool mode. Let's talk about that mode real quickly because it's so cool. The fire swamp. The goal of you playing the Fire Swamp is to get through it alive, and you can do that simply by shooting the 5 or 6 lit shots, and that's it. Except if you happen to hit a wall as it pops up as a fire spurt, or a scoop as it pops up as a sand pit, or hit this ROUS that's running across the screen, then you're in trouble, because then it makes it a lot harder to get to. You got to first deal with that hazard and then resume hitting the shots. It's a really unique mode. The idea of it is very simple, and it's very difficult to complete in the best way possible. It's really cool.
Yeah. And again, because of all these features, we got a lot of ways to think about pinball modes that aren't just hit this series of shots, right? Like hit them in this different order, so they all start feeling similar and everything like that. More ball tracking stuff. If you watch, there's some subtle, like little ethereal floaters that are coming off the ball path as it's floating around the playfield. So you'll see that happening in the game. Every time you're rolling over the in lanes and out lanes, and we put little switches on the out lanes so we can move the inserts away from those. And so as they roll over those virtual switches, that's just breaking the opto beams and telling us where that ball is, and that's how you're doing that on the side targets when it's hitting those. It's basically telling where the ball is based on the opto grid breaking. So there's all sorts of different games that use it. One of my favorites is Sorcerer's Apprentice that we have, where there's a little, we call it the floaty. The floaty comes across the playfield and floats it, so you've got to hit that floaty in time. When you do that activates the ball lock that you can do. And the call out says, hit the floaty. So there's a lot of different things that we can do because we have this ball tracking screen that's like a giant iPad that your ball's rolling over and interacting with stuff on the screen. So not only is it dynamic artwork, but you also can interact with virtual objects on the screen.
You all use standard glass or beautiful glass?
The P3 ships with our version of standard glass, which is actually better than most standard glasses because we round off all the edges of it, so it feels really nice in your hands. No sliced fingers.
It's very nice.
We're actually looking into anti-reflective glass right now. We don't currently offer it, but we might in the future.
Yes, sir.
The licensing, is it just because it's an older film, or did you spend an oodle amount of money? How can you get all the characters in the game? None of the manufacturers seems to be able to get every character in their game from the movie.
You get someone on your team to be a really impressive master negotiator. I mean, every license is a conversation between you and the licensor, and a lot of stuff is available, a lot of stuff isn't available, and the licensor makes it clear what's available and what isn't, and it tells you what comes with and what comes for a lot more money. In this particular case, the licensor owned a lot of the rights.
Yeah.
So the actors didn't own them themselves.
I won't go into details, but this one was much easier than many others are. So there's a reason we were able to put together this kind of immersion and deliver all the quotes and the clips and everything else. Some licenses you just can't.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be anything missing from it. That's the thing.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. We got the whole. Yeah. I mean, you're not sitting there pressing play and watching the whole movie, but you can play through the entire movie. Right? And it just feels. I feel very spoiled because I got to work with Weird Al, who's the nicest person in the world, and gave us an incredible amount of work, and was really amazing to work with and improved everything. Always heard licenses are hard, but then we got to work with this asset and got all the movie and everything else. So I'm like, what's everybody talking about? Licenses are easy.
We set the bar very high for ourselves.
Yeah.
What do you do?
But also, we've said no to some really dream licenses because of restrictions, right? Because they're usually up front about what you can and can't use.
Yeah, there's a reason you haven't seen a lot of the licenses that you always see people asking for.
Yeah.
And some of them are coming, and they're coming without some major piece.
Yeah.
And we chose not to go after them because we don't think we can deliver the immersive experience that y'all want, or that we want to deliver for you, without certain elements.
That's one thing that I personally care a whole lot about. I mean, the whole job is trying to handle a theme and handle a theme integration and make sure we're doing it justice. And so if we're looking at something and we're like, man, I really love this, but I don't think we can do it justice with these limitations, then we got to back out. And so I think
Swords. There are swords in this game. It's really
yeah.
Are some other companies still using your PC3 format?
Yes, we started with the P-Rock board. Many of you know about it, the control system that's in our games. We started out selling that to other companies, and yeah, there are still a few companies using those
Are
boards.
they doing well with it?
Every story is different, of course, but yeah, it's the most mature, the most feature-rich control system in pinball still, and always happy to talk to more people using them. Yes. Sir.
I have a silly question. So after after Princess Bride was released, a few months later, then Pinball also released Princess Bride. Did you guys ever play the virtual pinball version? And also did the license holder let you know that there's another version coming out a few months later?
You're so silly. Ha ha, funny. I have never played it. I don't actually have Zen installed or Pinball FX installed. I'm immersed. I'm fully consumed by pinball development on our system. But the licensors, all licensors, have a lot of deals going on with a lot of different things. In pinball licensing is usually distinctly separate from video game development. So if we wanted to develop a virtual version of our games, we would have to go and license that separately. So therefore, that falls under a different umbrella, and different discussions happen, and the timing of it is a little weird, but yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't got a chance to play it yet, not it yet. But I don't know. Again, I like physical
There's no
pinball.
way it's as good as our game.
Yeah. But I mean, I like physical pinball, right? And so, like, a lot of times that I see that the virtual pins do. I mean, I think they're great. I think they have a good place. I mean, it's, especially if you want to learn the rules on an existing game, it's an awesome way to do it. But a lot of times, like, I feel like a lot of stuff is, just in my opinion, is like, okay, well, I see a character dancing over here or doing something. It's like, is this enhancing my gameplay, or is it enhancing the modes or whatever? And so, I don't know. This is one thing. If anybody ever tells you that the Princess Bride or something isn't real pinball, it's like, no, we've got licensing proof. Like, there's another virtual pinball that does that, right? This is not. This is real pinball, you know. So.
Hey, how much of your games are in-house parts and stuff, or are you doing yourself, or you have to get outsourced in order to get your games completed?
So we build internally. We have a large CNC, basically a computer-controlled router that cuts out all the wood. We do all our cabinets, we do all our play fields, we apply the artwork, we do all that stuff in-house, and then we buy parts. Usually the parts we buy are individual screws, nuts, metal rails, pieces of plastic, printed pieces of plastic, all that stuff, and we assemble everything in-house. And we don't outsource any assembly, so all the sub-assemblies, we put everything together at the factory in Round Rock.
Are you having difficulty getting supplies?
Supply chain is always a challenge. Every aspect of this business is complicated. Designing games is hard. Sourcing the parts for games is hard. Putting them together in a way where they don't fall apart is hard. Designing them in a way where they are reliable for thousands and thousands of plays is hard. Every part of it is hard. But it's fun to make hard things real.
I don't think we've got the COVID supply chain issues or not.
Keeping your developers from making inappropriate jokes and stuff is hard. Yes.
Piqued my interest when you said Round Rock. We're fellow Alstonites. Do you have is your factory open, or do you have any kind of display room?
We do have a showroom, and you're absolutely welcome to contact us at any time. You can email me directly, gstellenberg@Multimorphic, or sales@Multimorphic, or whatever. We're happy to have you come by whenever. As long as we're around and not in meetings, we'll tell you when to come by, and we'll walk you around the floor. Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. If anyone has any additional questions, sorry, Jordan, we're out of time. We can answer them over in the showroom. We're set up right by the front door.
That's Perry Owens. I made that clear, right? That's a great
That is Perry Owens.
I just want to make sure everybody knows. Thank you. Okay.